Today I am building this enclosed Hifi equipment rack with integrated power sockets and cooling fan. This Hifi rack is the second part of my listening room build series. I live in a fairly large studio. It was originally an old industrial building, now converted to live-in studio spaces with workshops. It can get fairly dusty in here, especially when the famous southeaster wind blows here in Cape Town. Thus, this equipment rack has to be enclosed and also should then have some sort of airflow management to prevent the equipment inside to overheat. Sure, this is not the typical Hifi rack with spiked feet and anti-vibration technology built in and a lot, but I'm ultimately more interested in keeping my equipment dust free and working still for many years to come. The build starts with cutting down birch plywood sheet to more manageable sizes with a track saw before cutting to size all the parts I need on the table saw. The main body of the cabinet will be 15mm birch plywood and the adjustable shelves is 16mm MDF doubled up to give me 32mm in thickness. The birch ply panels are glued and nailed together. The brad nailer makes a small enough indentation in the wood for me to cover it up with wood filler so that I can hardly see it once sanded and finished. Birch plywood holds its shape rather well, and I only used a few thin strips of ply towards the back of the cabinet to reinforce and maintain squareness. I'm setting these strips in from the back to make room for the recessed MDF door in the back from where I can easily have access to the back panels of the equipment. This is a shelf pin jig from Craig and it works really well. It saves you loads of time and from having to measure the position of every shelf pin along the inner sides of the cabinet. Both the accuracy and quality of the jig is excellent. There's a purchase link in the description if you're interested to get one for yourself. Here I am starting to assemble the MDF shelves. Again, just glue and brad nails does the job. There are two types of shelves, one for equipment that is fairly deep and heavy such as amplifiers, and one for shallower equipment such as CD players, DACs and other similar items. Before I can fix the birch ply front to the shelf, I must write a groove in the two sides of each shelf. This is where the shelf pin will fit as we slide the shelf into the cabinet. And here you can see it in action as the grooves in the shell slides over the shelf pins, essentially concealing the pins from sight and creating a nice clean look. As I indicated a few moments ago, there are two types of shells, so I'm cutting and writing the parts of the shelf that I do not need out with a jigsaw and cleaning it up with a router and flush cut trim bit. At the bottom front on each side of the cabinet are two filters. These are computer case filters that I got from banggood.com. I'll put a link in the description. This will provide airflow through the cabinet towards a fan on the rear door and hopefully prevent dust entering the cabinet and ruining my equipment over time. The fan is a silent computer case fan that runs maximum at 800 rounds per minute on a 12 volt power supply, but will provide enough airflow through the cabinet to cool things down. To keep things tidy and cable management inside the cabinet, I'm also installing two power wall socket plates inside the cabinet on the rear door. front door is made from an 18mm birch plywood frame and 6mm clear acrylic. I would normally opt for glass instead of the acrylic here, but since we are still in lockdown, I have to do with what I have here in the workshop. Acrylic it was then. It's a bit scratched up, but it looks okay for now, and until I can replace it with glass in the future, this will have to do. Piano hinge is keeping the rear and front door securely hinged. I also used some weather stripping to make a good dust seal between the cabinet and the doors, but you will see that shortly when I show off the rack. I don't show the process here, but the entire cabinet was finished inside and out with 3 coats of water-based polyurethane with a light sanding with 240 grit sandpaper in between each coat. I like the fact that the water-based coating does not yellow the wood like other polyurethane finishes typically do. So on that note, let me show you a bit more detail around this Hifi cabinet. When we look through into the back, you can see the fan at the top of the rear door. This will create airflow from the dust filters on the side through the cabinet, extracting all the hot air created by the equipment. Removing some of the equipment reveals the shelves with cutouts that will aid in the airflow through the cabinet. You can also see the groove that are routed in the sides where the shelf pins slot into, concealing them for a clean look. These 5mm shelf pins are very sturdy and they keep the shelf securely in place, even with the weight of a heavy amplifier on it. Removing the larger shelf, you can see the cutout again where we will have airflow to keep the equipment cooled down. On the back of the cabinet door, we have the extraction fan and also one power cable emerging from the cabinet to keep wires managed and to the minimum. Underneath the power cable you see a hole, just big enough to route speaker cables through. I still need to put a grid in front of this fan on the inside, and below are the power sockets and again the hole to route speaker cables. You can also see that inside the cabinet we have lots of room to manage cables, and that the cutouts in the shelves are giving us that flexibility and space to route cables between the various components with ease. As mentioned before, I applied 3mm self-adhesive weather stripping to the front and back between the door and the cabinet to create an air and dust seal. So I really hope everyone enjoyed this project and that it will inspire you to be creative and make something of your own. Over time I will have more videos coming in the listening room build series, so make sure to subscribe now and click that bell to get notified of any upcoming videos on my channel. Thanks again to all my patron supporters, where I post behind the scene updates on my builds, and if you want to become a patron, please check the link in the description. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below, just in case I forgot to mention something in my video. But until next time, adios.